Hello and welcome to the Old Bob Show, produced and directed here at Vernon Communications in Westby. Westby is located in the beautiful western Wisconsin area of coulees and valleys and ridges. And we're happy to bring to you now the Old Bob Show, and here is your host, Bob Burrell. Hello and welcome again to the Old Bob Show, and always how good it is to be here in Vernon Communications and in Westby, Wisconsin, which along with Coon Valley and Viroqua, Stoddard, Chaseburg, and all of these wonderful little towns around western Wisconsin is just a haven of peace and privacy and some of the finest neighbors you'll ever find. Having said that, it also has some very fine communication facilities, which is one of the reasons that I'm here today and have been now for well over a year. And I'm very proud to have with me as my guest today, Rod Olson, who is the manager of Vernon Communications and Vernon Tel. And we're going to talk about Vernon Communications, but Vernon Tel has been here for how many years now?
I think it started in 1951.
1951.
So, yep.
And Rod, you've been in the business for 35 years.
Yes, this is my third phone company I've been at, and
Wow.
I started pretty much after I flunked out of school and lacrosse a little bit.
Probably the best thing that happened to you, you know?
Yeah, and I worked in Viroqua for about 20 years at the phone company there.
There you are. So it's now 2015, and 35 years ago, it was just simply a plain old telephone companies that Rod worked at. I kind of worked at that too at one time. And with the hard lines and landlines and no fiber optics and no satellites, and everything has changed. And so you've evolved, so to speak, with the whole industry, and consequently it gives you a good foundation, Rod, as you're in 2015 in a changing telephone company.
Yeah, it's we've seen a lot of changes happening over the years. The first place I worked, we had party lines. There were four party lines.
Right. Yeah.
And
I remember our own party line number, 211J1, and
yeah,
phones that ring all over the neighborhood.
yeah, that's right. And you listen in on everybody. But one of the challenging things going forward is, nobody wants to remember the past. And it doesn't really make that much difference, what's a party line, what's a dial phone, what is a phone, how do you dial this thing?
Exactly.
And so that's changed a lot, and we've really had to try to let go of the past and look forward in our business, especially here in rural communities, because it's, a lot of small companies are trying to hang on to the past, and it's like, well, somebody else will do the new stuff because it's kind of expensive to get into it. It's hard. It takes a lot of people, and we've decided that no, we need to do that because our communities need the new technology to grow and keep current. And quite frankly, what happened in the past does not necessarily dictate what happens in the future.
That's
not
exactly
in this
right.
business. So.
Well, Rod, that's a good description of not only what's evolving and what's happening in the telephone business, i.e. we can't look back, we need to keep looking forward in order to stay alive and to be vital, and that's true of life. Mm-hmm. And we hear about that every day, and here we are with Vernon Telephone in this area, which serves Westby and Viroqua, and how many?
Well, we've got actually 10 towns now. We go from Genoa, DeSoto on the river, to Liberty Pole, Reedstown, Viola, Lafarge, all the way to Yuba, Westby, and then Viroqua and Cashton are our new areas that we're competing with Frontier and CenturyLink in.
And you also link up with other phone companies like
and that's
like Coon Valley Farmers Co-op.
Yeah, all the small independent companies have gone together, and we've built what we call the statewide network, which is the Wisconsin Independent Network. Yeah. So when you look at the map, you see Westby and all of our towns and stuff, connectivity. Well, now we've got statewide connectivity through the state.
Fantastic.
And so somebody in Viroqua, if they want a dedicated circuit or whatnot to Hayward, Wisconsin, we can do it over our own network. Sure. And now that's evolved as well into what they call the Indetel network, which is nationwide.
The Intertel network. Yes, exactly.
Indetel network, and so that's a group of statewide networks that have gone together. So we're building blocks. So we can get circuits directly on our own network now to Texas, Florida, New York, anywhere. So.
And then actually it goes into a global network.
Right, and then everything's basically is tied over the internet now, as well.
It's amazing, from little Chaseburg, Wisconsin, I can reach into Moscow, Russia with no sweat.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if, you drive around in many parts of the country, when spring comes and during the summer, you will see phone company trucks and or constructors out there still burying cable and burying fiber optics and moving forward and advancing the technology so that it's secure as well.
We've got about 350 miles of new fiber optics going in this year in Vernon, and then plus 100 miles left over from last year that we didn't get done because we got an early frost and a late start. But the plan for Vernon is to be 100% fiber optic in a couple of years. Our entire rural area will be fiber optic if we get all the construction done.
That's good, because in the news lately, probably the last month, at least in this area, we've read about some concern that some parts of rural areas are not being served. But boy, in telephone exchanges like Vernon Tel and in the Coon Valley Farmers Telephone Co-op, making every effort to reach every single person out in that.
Right. The goal is you could basically take any corporation in the world. If you could pick it up and drop it anywhere in our serving area, it doesn't matter whether it's in Yuba or Viroqua, they could get any communication service that they need.
That's right.
And that's what our mission statement, reads. That our goal is to be the best telecommunications company possible and promote economic development in our area. So we have decided that Vernon Telephone will not be a barrier to any economic development of any member,
There you go.
So,
the nice thing that I've noticed around this whole area here, and I've had a couple of people on board who have talked well about the co-op, the cooperative movement, and you got Vernon Telephone Co-op, and you got Coon Valley Co-op.
Well, Coon Valley is a private company. They're a stock company. They're not a cooperative.
Okay. Right. Well, they call themselves a
no, they operate the same way that we do. They are a stock company, but
all right.
They've got the same mission as we do. They're more worried about service than they are, paying the dividends. So they're a good company.
So now here you are in 2015, this year, and for the next 5 years, what's your top goals, your objectives?
Well, the one thing is, we have to go back a little bit to tell you a little bit what our goals is and what we need to do going forward. And we're actually taping this a little bit ahead of our annual meeting, but it probably will happen after the annual meeting. But we started out a telephone company, and telephone was a necessity.
Yep.
And then as the years go, broadband services or internet and data services were kind of a luxury.
You're going from telephone to communications.
Right. And then, so now as we've go, the data services, the broadband services that we need are the necessity, and the telephone service is kind of the, it's a convenience.
Well, that's amazing.
So people are dropping their phone lines and everything's moving over to the broadband line. So what we have to do in order to keep ahead of the curve of technology is put fiber optics cables in, and then we actually have to transform from being a telephone company to a broadband company. So what we're...
if I could interrupt, that's a pretty darn big step for
telephone
employee, the old timers, as well as the new timers who have been with telephone a long time. I remember when I was in the cable business, telephone companies weren't happy about us.
No, they still aren't, and they're not happy about us either, getting into their business. So
there was real political problems going on in these city councils about, well, they're not going to be on my polls.
Right.
But so look at that. As you said, we got to forget the past and go forward, because telephone is now owns cable, literally.
Well, I mean, it's
through their broadband networks.
It really depends on the serving company. There's areas of the country where the cable company is much stronger than the telephone companies were, and they pretty much own the area. we want to own this area.
Yeah.
And so like I said, before, we have to kind of forget about the past. The newer people that want all this broadband service, they don't really care about the phone company. So one of the big steps that we need to make is, it starts with changing our name. And because of the old telephone regulations that we had, a telephone company or a telephone cooperative, is just for cooperatives, could not get into certain businesses in the state. Okay. One being cable television, one being internet services and long distance. So back in 1999, we formed Vernon Communications, and that was our subsidiary. And then, but what's happened along the way is Vernon Telephone owns Vernon Communications, but Vernon Communications was the growth company. That's where all the broadband was.
There you are.
And the television.
The parent.
It outgrew the parent.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, revenues in the subsidiary are bigger than the parent. The financials are stronger. Okay. So what we wanted to do now is we have to make sure that our new people coming into the area, when they're looking for a broadband provider, they're probably not going over to the telephone section, and Googling a phone company for broadband. So what we did is we collapsed our subsidiary because of regulatory reasons in the state. We got that fixed. So telephone cooperatives can own broadband companies now and TV. So December 31st, Vernon Communications LLC went away. Okay. We dissolved it. It's all back into the cooperative. So now at the annual meeting, what we want to do this year is kind of do a flip-flop. We know that we need to get telephone out of our name because it identifies with the past, which I like to remember, but nobody else cares about. So we're changing the name of Vernon Telephone Cooperative to Vernon Communications Cooperative. Hence the name. We got known by Vernon Communications, and Vernon Communications is more broad.
That's great.
Broad looking. So that'll take. Got a new logo, and it's a new day is dawning. And
there you go. Boy, I like that. I like the language that you're using. It was wonderful. There's a lot of nostalgia and a lot of poignancy, and there's a lot of good things about the past that you talk about in terms of the coziness, if you will, and the home kindness, neighborliness of the old party line, for example. And at that time, our culture was different too, Rod. It was a slower culture, and it wasn't as fast, and there wasn't so much available, and so there was a lot more dependence in a sense, and relationships among people. Today, it's with the communications we have today, there's so much entertainment and so much input.
And it's always on. It's always on.
Yeah, and so I don't need to talk to you as much as I really would, like to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I can be all alone and enjoy the whole world. Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Well, and then the other thing is too is for some reason that I think our culture is developing into a whole lot of not as much trust in each other as we used to, so people would rather text to you instead of talk to you because I'm in control of a text message or an internet email as to what I want to tell you, and you are going to ask back, and if you ask something back, I just don't have to answer it. It's not like that. People don't know how to talk to anymore.
No, that's and I'm not sure that's good, because the intercommunications. We're supposed to be able to be a civilized society and just kind of move along together and kind of go with the flow. And so if you want to be, if I want to be a real whatever, I can send out all kinds of texts and not answer them.
Yeah,
they come back.
And we're probably the motor that feeds a lot of that by giving people access to all these things. But it's what people want, and we have to do it to keep the doors open. Yeah. And in short, if we don't evolve, we're going to fall behind. If we fall behind, I think the community falls behind. The last thing we need is a very, very nice family moving into the area that people can work from home. Maybe they work for a large company somewhere else in the U.S., but they don't have connectivity. So here to where they can work from home, because that is the biggest new industry. Mm-hmm. It's telecommuting. If they can't live here and look outside and do their work, they're going to live somewhere else. And I don't think anybody wants to fight traffic for half an hour to go to work, to go sit in a cube in a big building next to somebody that they never talked to, only to spend an hour going home. You know, if I can grab my coffee cup, I can go out on my deck and I can do my work and look over the meadow. That's what people
You've
want.
just described. We were down in the Dane County, Madison area again yesterday, and we know the area really well. We were born and raised in that area, but no kidding, it is a real. It's I guess what you'd call, it's not a generational shock, but it's an environmental shock to come from here, this area here, which is so different from Dane County now. It's quieter. There's not as much traffic going on. There's not as much hustle and bustle, and you get into that area, and people are different.
Right, and what we need to do in this area to keep our, you know, it all trickles down, whether it's in schools, to roads, to government, to everything else. We need to keep our young people here. Young people are only going to live where there's something that they need and do. So if this becomes the Stone Ages around here, you know, it's going to go by way of the dinosaur.
Exactly. You're absolutely right about that. No doubt about it.
You know, we need to make this a place that you can get anything you want.
I really like the idea that you know, being able to have your office right where you are, and there are many people around here who do that now. They're in investments, and they're working for corporations, and they're doing certain specific jobs, but because of the networks that you provided and the phone and the communication companies that provided, they can do that. They can, in fact, be even better at it because, as you said, you have your breakfast, have your cup of coffee, and go to your desk, which is warm and familiar, and you got everything there, and you can really operate.
The other thing it's doing is it's giving companies nationwide exposure. I know a lot of people, they say, well, you know, he's in our Wisconsin office. You know, it's his home that he lives in Wisconsin, so now they have a Wisconsin office.
There you are.
You know,
that's great.
So
I think I'll start another office.
So.
But you literally do. You really literally do. And of course, when you're here then, and you've got this wonderful means at hand, boy, you can extend your life all over.
Right. Well, you know, and then, like I say, in order to do that, we need to keep our cooperative strong. And the only way we can do that, I think, was we had to change our name. We had to identify with the future. You know, my office, I've got some shelves. I got all kinds of old telephones and stuff in there. I'm taking it all down. You know, Vernon Communications Cooperative. It's a new day, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start finding some new stuff now. Where I had a bunch of old telephones, the same thing. I'm going to end up with, I don't know, a shelf full of little memory sticks or something like that. That's probably what it's going to be. But we're transforming. You know, I don't think I can lead a technology company looking at a crank telephone that I happen to take out of someone's home. I need to have the exposure of what's moving forward myself.
Well, you know, Rod, I go back a little farther than you do, a little further than you do. I remember my dad taking me into the Stoughton telephone, whatever it was, where there were 4 women sitting there, and they were doing the plug.
They're the operators.
They were the operators, and it was fascinating. And you know, I also helped our neighbor who was head of the little local telephone. He was a supervisor or whatever. And I'd crawl up the pole and hang a line that would fall off one of those little insulators. And so here we are. And I think that, boy, you have to have the kind of vision that you've got in order to manage well and to forward, if you will, as to, you know, where we're going to be the next 10 or 20 years. Now, that's by itself is kind of a challenge, because when you look at the, it's great to sit here and work throughout the world. It's a lot greater than, as you say, commuting for a half an hour, 45 minutes. It's horrible. By the time you get to work, you know, you're kind of sad. But
you've added 2 hours to your day too.
Exactly. On the other hand, now it's a matter of you know, trying to help everybody understand that there's also accountability and responsibility with this kind of service at hand for them.
Right.
And so, you know, tell that to young people who have iPads. Now,
well, you know as well as I do, you know, you go into a public place and half the people are sitting here like this. To me, that's unbelievable because they're escaping. It's an escape.
Well, it's just a way, it's just a different way of doing stuff. I mean, you go to some restaurants now and they don't have a waiter. You just order on your iPad that's at the you know, at the table. You know, when you pay your bill, they come by with the iPad with the QBI, scan your credit card, and away you go. So, but that's the way it's going to be, and we need to understand that it is what it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely.
that's what we need to do. So.
But I also think that there has, you know, whatever, parental or whatever input here, education, school input, that will, you know, not let it go so far this way in terms of non-personal communications, so that you begin to develop and raise people who really don't know how to start using their heads because there's no.
We've had a lot of conversations with like the tech school and stuff. They have focus groups and whatnot. And they say, you know, you got to teach these kids how to talk. You know, because we've had
and
people.
How to think
we've had people come in and apply for jobs. They're probably smart as a whip, but they can't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And that needs to be just as important as any other business communications, you know, or math or physics or something like that. Because if you can't talk, you can't work.
That's right.
Or you're not going to work for us anyway.
The whole thing reminds me of, it was great, it was 20, 30 years ago, a comedian. You know, there was lots of, there was like, what do you call it, the margarine being done instead of butter, and a lot of substitutes and all that. And so this guy went through a little skit about doing a certain kind of cherry pie. And man, he whipped all this stuff together with all the new little things here and there, and he said, "Lo, a cherry pie without cherries."
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about here, I think, is we're facilitating communications, but at the same time, there's this matter of personal communication versus interpersonal, and without, you know, answering a text or texting, you can't really debate each other. You can't talk and reason out and have a conversation and get to a solution or what have you.
Well, and I think that really hampers things because everything is short and quick. You know, if we were to type out the conversation we just had, you know, it's going to be 10 pages long.
Oh yeah.
But if we were going to summarize that in an email, we'd click a few lines. You don't get your point across, and then it just feeds on each other. Quick breeds quicker, which means quicker. You know, and then pretty soon you're down to trying to interpret each other's grunts instead of what they're actually saying. And then as soon as you assume you know what that means, you know, you get the wrong assumption.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I tell you what, it's just great talking with you because you know some of the dangers of availing these marvelous communication services, and the rewards are incredible, and from an economic and financial viewpoint, social viewpoint, boy, oh boy, what an awesome thing. On the other hand, it's something to be aware of at all times, that we need to try and be in sync with each other. And as you said, people come in and they don't know how to talk. Boy, if they're not challenged, and actually if it's not exercise and there's no learning curve there, well, it's not good.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I guess you know, that's what we've heard from our people, what they need.
Yep.
And you know, we're gonna deliver it. And in order to do it the best way we can, we need to change. We need to change our name, and we need to change our. We've always had a pretty forward-looking thing, but I don't think we've been the best at communicating that. You know, we want to lead. You know, and we always have led, but nobody knows we're leading. We're just always been there. We've been steady, but
and everybody accepts it as a daily thing. It's just part of their life, and they, boy, you know, unless something goes wrong, They don't even know they're around.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know how they're going to have it until they go somewhere else.
Boy, I like that one. So
Yeah.
well, there's a lot of places somewhere else here on earth to get ready for heaven, I think.
Right.
And one of the courses used to be bad storms, etc. And with the phone company when all lines were down, that was hell.
And it's even more now. But when somebody's phone's out of order, yeah, they get around to calling us. When their TV or internet is down, we know right away.
Isn't that a big?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty important. So
Fantastic.
we really have flip-flopped.
Yep. So, boy, oh boy, 35 years, and you're still a very young man, Rod, and so you've got another 20 at least to go here, I think.
Oh, I don't know about 20, but we're going to hang around until we see this thing done.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it'll never be done.
You're
not,
right.
Not if we do it right. We're never done.
You're absolutely right about that. And the role here of your job and your staff job, and I have to commend Randy, who does a great job in producing and directing the program, and then she's got a good volunteer with her like Jane Burrow as our super camera person.
You know, the heart of any organization is the employees. And we're very, very choosy.
Yeah.
And I can say that, we've got a whole company full of rock stars.
Boy,
So
what an assessment, and how great for a company. You got a lot of pride, and you got a wonderful image, and boy, I tell you, the public needs to stand up and cheer on our communication works, because they're free. They're relatively free. And speaking of that, do you have anything coming down from the FCC or from the Fed regulations that is?
there's some stuff coming down that is going to allow us to possibly apply for some money to build out some more areas, expand our footprint.
Okay.
I don't know when it is going to be finalized, but what we've always tried to do here is partner with other companies. Some things you just can't go it alone. So we're always looking for some strategic partnerships to do some things. We've partnered with companies. That's how we had a television deployment in Japan for many years out of Westby. And the statewide network is partnership. So we're always looking for strategic partners. You can't, I know, and I think everybody else knows that, we are a smaller company. We're pretty good size as far as phone companies in Wisconsin go, but you can't go it alone. So you have to take the best of what we got with the best of what they've got, and away we go.
The nice thing about it too is that all of your staff, your employees are local, mostly local. So they know the area very well, and they know a lot of customers well, and that makes the service so much nicer for all of us out there.
Well, it's nice to know when they're talking, well, so and so lives out there, take a right at this road, and that's out there, so they know where you're talking about.
So in this case, small is better, and small is getting bigger, but it's getting better in a bigger way, probably.
We need to get bigger, so we got enough cash to do what we need, but we need to maintain our local, small attitude, so that the customers come first, or members, in this case, members come first, and if they're not happy, mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, and that's the way it is. They let us know. And
that's life, but we're looking forward and we're building.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Rod.
Okay.
Rod Olson, who's the manager of Vernon Communications, soon to be Vernon Tells, become Vernon Communications Cooperative, and a much broader language look at as to all the many services that are now being offered. Thanks for being with us all, and we look forward again to seeing you next week with another guest. And best of luck, Rod, to you in this coming year, and hang in there. You've done well so far.
All right, thank you.
I'm Bob Burrell, thanking Gene and Randy for the good help in producing this, and may all of you have a blessed day.